Okay, I'm going to a call where it's a walk-in cooler. I was there the other day. The expansion valve is hunting really bad. The coil TD is it hunts up to 30 degrees temperature difference across the coil, down to -9, I think it was, and then we go right back up to 30 plus. It was constantly hunting, and because of it, when it opens up and it goes down to -9 like that, you get bubbles in the sight glass. And somebody had put gas in the system. It was R22, and they overcharged it. And I got a call from the guy that his compressor kept tripping the breaker. So I went there and I took a bunch of gas out of the system, and I checked the expansion valve, and I found that it was hunting really bad. It was swinging. So what I ended up doing was I picked up a new expansion valve components, and I have to put it together on the job. But that's what I have to do today, is take care of that hunting. Okay, today we're working on it's a bone, it's a walk-in cooler. It's sodas and beers and stuff. And what we're having a problem with is this expansion valve, and it's hunting really bad. The temperature will rise and then drop down too low, and rise and drop down too low. It's not stable. And it's a beer cooler. I'm trying to keep a 15-degree temperature difference between the outlet over here, the temperature of this outlet, and the temperature of the inlet over here. These distributor tubes up here. This distributor tubes should be 15 degrees colder than the outlet, and I'm not getting that. I'm getting it'll swing from 30 degrees to 0, and then back to 30 and then 0. So I mean, it's cold in here. It's keeping temperature, but it's making life difficult for the expansion valve. So we want to correct that. Okay, what I've got is I had to buy the expansion valve components, and I had to put them together myself. Here's the power assembly. It's R22 system. It'll eventually get converted over, but to a R22 compatible refrigerant. That's the power assembly. It's the expansion valve body with the external equalizer in it. And this is the cage kit, it's called. You can see right there. It says cage kit. And this has to fit inside of the body here. And what's important was I put POE oil on this little rubber gasket here, this little O-ring. You don't want to use regular oil like fan motor oil on it, because that's got wax in it, and wax is very detrimental to an expansion valve. And this is a little tricky to get this in here. The kit came with this socket here. It just fits right in there exactly. So I have to get it started and then tighten it down. I use POE oil for a lubricant on this, on the threads, on the gasket. I probably could have used Nylox, because that's a lubricant also, but I didn't want it to plug up anything. Now here's the rest of the valve body. Now, a lot of guys have pros and cons about using sealants. I like sealants just because I don't like leaks. So I'm going to use a little bit of sealant on these threads here, but very, very, very sparingly, because I don't want it to get in the mechanism. And I'm putting it on the male piece here, because what will happen is it'll actually, I don't know if you can see how sparingly I put that on there, but it'll actually get pushed down and not into the valve body. See the threads, I didn't put any sealant on the threads. Usually you don't have to build your own. Usually the guy at the supply house will build it for you right there at the counter. Or you can get the expansion valves already pre-assembled, which is always a nice thing. Quite a few years ago I bought an expansion valve at a supply house, and the guy had a customer that needed something, so he took a couple of valves apart and made one for him, and then he put it back together again, and he didn't tighten this up. And I came in next day, got it, thinking it was fine, all tight and all from the factory, put it on a job, and 2 days later all the gas had leaked out of it. Okay, you see I just put a very small dab of sealant on it. Very, very, very sparing amount. And these threads are they're fine threads. It should get distributed. But I only put a very fine amount on there. I don't know if you can see that. Pumped a compressor down in the basement, and that's the inside of the power assembly. The spring and bellows of the cage that I just put in pushes against the bellows here. Definitely don't want to force, you want to get the threads right. Snug fit. I thought I was stripping the thread on it, it was so tight. But apparently that's just the tight tolerances they put on it. What I was looking for, when you strip a thread like that, you'll get a little brass, the thread will come out, it'll look like a little brass string, and that's not a good sign when you see that. This is going on okay now. Very cautious about that. You definitely don't want to have to come back. This strainer right here, and you got to be careful. It's got little spring clips in it that hold it in. gotta be careful. Sometimes they fall out on you, and you gotta go look under the shelves for it. Okay, now I've got. There was one fellow from England. He actually got upset that I was using leak lock on. That I was using leak lock on threads. Now I don't know why he got upset. It is sealant and it just prevents any leaks, and you've got expansion and contraction going on here. This point here is usually the coldest point in the system. It'll get very, very, very cold. Then when the system shuts off, it warms up, and then it goes back on again. It gets very, very, very cold again. And then so this flare nut is made of brass. You have the copper tube, you have the brass flare nut, and this body is probably brass or bronze. And you have different coefficients of expansion and contraction, and this flare nut will literally come loose. I mean, I gone on a job and the flare nut was just, I could move it with my fingers, it was so loose. But and then all the gas leaks out of the system. So I like to use. See, and I don't know if you can see how much I put on there, but it's not very much, and I'm careful not to get it into the end of the. Now this fellow was upset. He was citing some PDF that he read from some company. I don't know what it was. Some companies, and he was saying, you know, if you get the flare good, it'll be fine. Well, of course, but you go on so many jobs, and then you don't know who flared the joint over the years, and or how many times the dryer filter had been changed, and you know, you get some flares that are pretty bad shape, and you can't really tell what condition they're in without putting it all together. So it's always just I find it as a safety for me to put the leak lock on there, and just a little bit of Teflon tape. It's a redundant, a secondary defense. And very seldom ever have leaks on expansion valves because of that, and that's nice, nice sealant on it, and I didn't get any into the opening, the orifice of it. Lighting's kind of poor in here, but we'll do the best we can. But you can see the orifice here. There's no leak lock in it. I was very careful about that, and it's nice and neat and clean and dry. You don't want to have it all drippy and gooey and blobby, because it will get inside the valve. And I've had a brother-in-law that was working with me quite a few years ago, and he put installed an expansion valve on a little, it was a prep table or something like that. And a while later I had to take the valve off, and when I took the valve off, there was a hardened ball of leak lock right in the hole here, the size of a small pea, and it was just a little crevice for the Freon to get past. I mean, the system worked all those years with it on there like that, but it just it turned into a hard ball. So you got to be very careful at the amount of leak lock you use. Very sparingly, very carefully. You don't want it to get inside the system. But like I say, you never know who flared the joint. And there's even some flares now that's it's a flare nut and a flare nut with a little flare inside. It's mechanically done. And the swedges on the flares on the inside of it are miserably small. I don't like those things at all. I'll have to buy one someday just to pointed out. Okay, now that valve's ready to go. Now I'm going to open the system up and change it. First, I want to take the bulb off. That's going to be back that way. Gotta find it. Oh, there it is. What the heck is this? Somebody put. That's not good. It's got one clamp on it. I don't know if you can see it back there. It's got one clamp on it and it's not even tight. Why it was helping it, causing it to. Okay, I got that off finally. It was pretty difficult. Behind me. Now I gotta put these off. Are getting cold in here. check the screen to see if there's any problems in the system. Into this flare here. I'm not going to pull my flaring tool out and redo it, but this is why I use leak lock. If you look in there, the flare doesn't make it all the way to the edge of doesn't make it all the way to the edge. So it's just going to catch the end of the to reflare it. I'd have to redo all the tubing on it. Just too much trouble. And this one here would be very hard to reflare. I'd have to do some brazing and soldering, and distributor tubes tend to fall out when you overheat this up. But if you look inside of it, get a better light. Let's see if you can see this here. Okay, this one goes pretty much to the goes pretty much to the edge. Looks like I got some moisture there from dripping. I'm gonna have to try to get that off, dry that up as much as I can. But this one's a good flare. It goes all the way to the threads, and I'm happy with that. But that's why my point is that's why I use leak lock. Because of flares like this, and you can't go around redoing all the flares on the job every time you're there. If it leaks, I have a serious problem with it, then I'll have to work on it. Now I want to get that dried out. threads caught right. And it's another one, you don't want to strip these threads. They can be problematic sometimes. Tighten the threads up a little bit, but don't make them tight because you got to move the valve around to get the other ones. Just snug it up but so that you can move it around. Because if you tighten this one up, then you're not going to get the other ones. It's it's snug. Now, let's get this guy. Connections are half by, it's 3/8 liquid, 1/2 inch suction, and 1/4 inch external equalizer. Trick is to get this on here. The other one was coming out sideways. Now I have to. Luckily, it's a 1/4 inch tube. Blood leaves your arms. Shake them out sometimes. Now, this valve is a 3/4 ton valve. The other valve is a 1 ton valve. It's 3/4 to 1 ton. That's what this is. And the other one was 1 ton to 1.5. And that's what I did was I figured out the BTU rating on the compressor and I downsized the valve because of that. And that's one of the reasons sometimes some of the valves hunt is because the valve's too large. It opens up and floods refrigerant through the coil, and as it comes out, the sensing bulb senses it and closes the valve off. So then the temperature changes quickly. And then the system's warm still, so the valve opened, the bulb warms up and the valve opens up again, and too much refrigerant flows through it. The smaller valve will meter it more rather than letting it open and close, open and close. But let's see if I can get it there. I think the BTU rating for this compressor with R22 was 11,000 BTUs, 11,000 something, which is right at a ton, which is the top end of this valve here. It's just under what the other valve was rated at. So you want to get that tight. Now this one you want to try to get it as straight as possible because, and the pipe's bent, so that's not going to be, but this is the one I'm going to be concerned about if it leaks. To reflare it, it would be a bit of a problem because of this bend. I'd have to try to straighten this out so I can get this flare nut down it. It's just, if I can get this sealed, and I feel confident I get it sealed, but if I can't, then I have to break out the torches and extend the pipe and all that, which if I have to do, I'll do. But I want to try to keep the bill reasonable. By over tightening the flare nut. Okay, now I got to get the bulb installed. Let's see. nut today. Lost one of the new nuts someplace and it fell down. I'm not about to go through all the bottles down below to find it, so I have to use the one old clamp. I'm gonna try to find the screw on it. On tight now. That's good. And it should be the 3 o'clock position and the 4 o'clock position. That's good. That was a bear to get that. Huh? That was a bear to get that bulb on the back there. I couldn't even hardly see it. One of the clamps I couldn't use. I had to use the other clamp, a new clamp. Couldn't use the
open something?
Huh?
You had to open something?
Well, no, it's the thermostat bulb. This bulb has to get clamped onto the pipe really tight. I got it though.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah. Okay. I put some nitrogen pressure in the lines to check for leaks, and now I want to check this joint first. This is the one that would leak the most. If I didn't get that little bit of a flare, the seated part, once it's seated, it should stay seated for years. Now this one. This isn't the one that expands and contracts as much as the one that, this is the liquid line. The one that expands and contracts the most would be the suction line, which is over here in the back. But we'll young, worked for my father. We would never buy soap. We'd use lemon flavored Joy. Alright, put soap on it, that memory comes back. I can almost smell the lemon flavored Joy. Chemists, they know that when your brain smells something that's good to eat, that you'll buy it. So they'll make a soda, for instance, and put lemon flavored chemicals in it. No lemon at all, it's just flavored lemon. So that your brain says, oh boy, that's a good thing to drink. I'm not seeing any bubbles, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I have pressure in the lines. Gotta adjust this guy. Change the dryer filter now. Okay, I got it started up now, and I've got probe on the line leaving right after the expansion valve. That's T2. The T1 I have on the pipe leaving the evaporator coil just before the thermostatic bulb, expansion valve bulb. Now T1 is reading, T2 is reading 34. That's right after the valve. that should be colder. And T1 leaving is 30, so it's the line leaving is colder than right after the expansion valve, and that's what we don't want. And then what's happening is we're flooding refrigerant down to the compressor. And what we want to do is close the expansion valve off. We want to close the expansion valve off, which is clockwise, until we get the suction leaving 15 degrees warmer, 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the expansion valve here, the inlet. We want the outlet 15 degrees warmer than the inlet. And the way to do that is you close a valve off by going clockwise. I may have to go a lot on this one because this is, let's see what we get here. Much reaction. Let me see. I have to get. Starting to get a little results. The inlet is 25 and the outlet is 35, so we got 10 degrees. Let me change this over to okay, 16, 15. It's pretty close to what I want. Let's see if it holds it. So with the 15 degree TD, it'll keep it dry in here. And this is it's soda, and it's got wood shelving and cardboard boxes. When it's damp in here, the cardboard boxes they get moist, and you get that cardboard stink, wet cardboard smell. Okay, I'm up to 18 degrees, which is too high. You lose your refrigeration at that point. It starts running warm. So I want to open the valve up a little bit, and we'll see where we're at now. That's pretty good right there. Let's see if it holds it. Looks good. Yeah. Real good. Talking to the camera.
Working good? Yeah.
Want to be on YouTube? This is my customer Tyrone here.
This is going on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, hi everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Call him if you need any work to do.
Yeah. But it's much better now. I've got her. I don't know, remember the other day it was swinging on, going up the dirt, and it's staying right on, 14, 15, 13, right in that range. See, it's zeroed down really nice. And it's not hunting like it was. I mean, it was hunting, really bad hunting.
And like you say, one bad.
Yeah. They go bad. The springs get worn out. And you know, some valves are just left in cases for years. And nobody even checks them, and they just and they're running poorly. And what happens is your compressor has to work real hard, and the electric bill's higher. It's nice to be able to fine-tune something and get it working exactly. Okay, let's see. Raise it just a little bit.
Sometimes some parts just keep going, sometimes just keep going.
Yeah. thermostat a little bit warmer too, so we don't run it so cold.
Did you check the defrost cycle? Right?
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, make sure I know that.
As long as you have a certain amount of defrost in the 24-hour period, that's...
How many you want to eat?
Well, I like to use 4 and keep it completely clean that way. You can have 4 short ones. Sometimes when you have a long spans, you know, like instead of every 6 hours, if you go every 12 hours, then frost starts to build up. And when frost builds up on evaporated tubing, it's retarding the heat transfer. So the compressor will run a little bit longer, and you have a chance of liquid flooding back to the compressor.
Now they have half an hour every 6 hours getting better, right?
Yeah. But this is, the hunting's completely gone now. It's just very, very, very tiny. It's perfect, actually. It's perfect. You can see the frost is on distributor tubes and nothing on the line leaving, which is exactly what we wanted. And let me go back to this here. So this is my inlet, and that's my outlet. And it's perfectly balanced. Now you won't flood back to the compressor. So let's go check the compressor now. Turn this off now. Okay, this is holding really good. I'm staying 14 to 15 degrees. It's a nice tight margin there. It's better than most valves. Most valves will, you know, fluctuate quite a bit, go up and down quite a bit. This is zeroed in really nice. I'm really happy with it. And it's working pretty good. All I gotta do is close it all up. Up because sometimes you can lose some gas through this. It's good not to leave it loose. You don't really have to crank down on it, but just I just have to put the cover on this, and that's it for the expansion valve. This is Tyrone's store. Tyrone. This is a little market in Cleveland. But it's a nice little neighborhood market. Later, guys.